So we're talking about breathwork for sports performance, and that doesn't mean we have to be a professional sports person. It's whatever sport or any exercise or activity that we get engaged in. I've been doing a lot of work recently with a number of professional sports, men and women and teams, particularly in rugby. I used to be a professional rugby player, and it's one of the things for me that I think, oh, I wish I knew this when I played rugby. We knew nothing about breathing at all, other than if you were really tired, the coach was like, put your hands on your head and just take some big breaths in to try and get your breath back. That was all we really got told, like nothing more than that. And part of me sort of kicks myself to think that why, if every cell in my body needs oxygen, not just my muscles, every cell in my body needs oxygen to create energy. And part of in that energy process, we create carbon dioxide, and my body has to deal with that carbon dioxide in the body and ultimately get rid of it at some point. How I can deal with those things, how I get oxygen in, and how I deal with the CO2 that's created, is that going to be important? And it's like, well, of course it is, but why weren't we thinking about it? But anyway, luckily there's been a lot of research out there now. Everything that we're going to go through in relation to the oxygen advantage, who recently become a master instructor. So I will be doing a certification course actually for people that want to become certified instructors themselves. That's going to be in February. So keep an eye out for that, those who are interested in actually becoming able to teach it themselves. But yeah, being able to use with the oxygen advantage, all the scientific principles. So it's all backed by science and research. There'll be a number of references I can send you to. Some people like to read the research papers and stuff as well. If you've got the Oxygen Advantage book or Patrick's latest book, The Breathing Cure, there's like hundreds of references in there. So people can go and check out the science if they want to do so as well. And I might make reference to a couple of those as we go through. But we are looking then at like what things can we do to with our breathing to improve our sporting performances. So I'm going to share. Great. So talking about unlocking the power of the breath, like as I said, that we knew nothing about this previously, or I didn't when I was playing professional rugby, and wish we did. So a little bit of theory in this so that you understand what it is that we're going to do. But then the practical element of this is I want to get jumping straight into some of the practical stuff so you can really get some chance to practice and also feel like what is it like to do some of these, some of the things that we teach with the Oxygen Advantage to help us with the performance. So this isn't going to be everything. This is just a couple of highlights of things to get started with, and some of the things that I guess I would say is if you're going to get started, here's a good starting point for us and where we want to go. You can always go deeper into any of these things. So we're going to learn how to get oxygen more efficiently into our working muscles when we're actually exercising, training, or doing our sports. How to use breath holding drills, particularly in warm-ups, to increase our red blood cell count. There's some immediate effects we can get from that, as well as some longer term effects, which is like the altitude training effect that we'll talk about. And then breathing to improve our recovery. And we've got this during a session as well as post-training recovery. So two elements to that there that are going to be beneficial for us. And like I say, there's a little bit of understanding for you before getting really into the practical. And when we're thinking about breathwork for sports performance, I'm breaking it down into three key areas. So I've recently, and some of you have got it, the ebook that I've released recently, and there's a course, an online course that goes alongside that for people that want to take a bit of a deep dive and do live sessions rather than just working through the ebook on their own pace. But these three areas are foundation, and then the performance benefits, and then the recovery. So we think of these three areas, and that foundation is going to be our base, that everything we build up on top of that. So it might be a bit sort of what's the right word? You might think oh, but we're doing this is about sports performance, so let's get into all the sports performance stuff. Well, anything you do when you're exercising or training is built upon what you're able to do at rest when you're not. So let's not negate that. I'm not going to spend too much time on that in this session because I want to give you some of the chance to do some of the bits. But we're thinking about what's our day-to-day breathing habits like. And then in terms of our performance, we're looking at improving things like our breathing efficiency. So how efficiently can we get air into the lungs, from the lungs into the blood, and then into the tissues themselves. There's like these 3 steps that if the air and oxygen's got to go through. We've got to get it in the actual lungs. We've got to get it from the lungs to the blood. That's step 2. And then step 3, we've got to get it from the blood into the tissues themselves. And it is hemoglobin that carries the oxygen within red blood cells that we're trying to influence when we're talking about CO2 tolerance, which we'll touch on when we're getting into some of the breath holding. The altitude training is the breath holding side of it. So when we hold the breath with the oxygen advantage, it's done after a normal exhale. We're going to experience what that's like together. That gives us a drop in oxygen because you're not breathing any more in, which we'd call hypoxic effect, just means fancy word for low oxygen. And then CO2 is rising because it's being created in the body as we're sort of walking, or we're jogging, or we could do all sorts of things. But we're doing so, CO2 is being created as oxygen is being used up. So, and we're not letting it leave because we're holding the breath. So that CO2 goes up, and that's what we call hypercapnics, just a fancy word for that high CO2. And the body has to adapt to this low oxygen, high CO2 effect. And it's similar when we get a, if you've seen, anyone's got the pulse oximeters, if you're getting your blood oxygen saturations, come on in a second, if you get your blood oxygen saturations down into the mid 80s, mine will eventually register in a second. Or I'm dead. I haven't got any. It will, so mid to low 80s, it's like being at 4,000 to 5,000 meters of altitude. So they say in the training. There we go, finally. And the good news is I'm at 99. So it's high. So normal is 95 to 99. We don't, this is an interesting early point, we don't want it to be 100, because if your hemoglobin, your red blood cells were 100% saturated with oxygen, that would mean none is leaving. And having oxygen in your blood doesn't mean it's getting to your muscles and your tissues. You can still feel like you're out of breath because it's not getting to the tissues where it needs to be. Does that make sense? And people give me a little nod along if it does. Yeah. It's carbon dioxide that's created that is the catalyst. That's just a fancy word for like this, the stimulant, the thing that allows hemoglobin to release its affinity to oxygen, and therefore the oxygen gets released from the red blood cells into the actual tissues. Okay, so one of the things, if people have these pulse oximeters, cost like 20 quid on Amazon. I can share you a link to those, or in the course that I've got, there's a link to it. But there you go, you can see that we can measure, and I could do some breathing exercises, and I could notice that level going down. So I could practice oxygen going down and CO2 going up. So that gives my body that environment of what's going to happen when I'm at exercise. But I can do that by holding the breath or slowing down my breathing to work on my breathing efficiency or work on that altitude training effect without actually, doing training in terms of hammering my body. But how my body deals with the low oxygen, the higher CO2, gives my body the chance to adapt to that environment. Yeah, one of the adaptations of low oxygen is my body tries to find a way to make it easier for us to have oxygen. So we have a production of red blood cells, which comes from the process. The kidneys get stimulated to produce more EPO, and then there's a delay of about 3 to 4 days before EPO stimulates the more red blood cells to be created in the bone marrow. That doesn't necessarily matter. All that matters is we know, or you know, that if I spend time at altitude and come back to sea level, my breathing can be improved because I can have some of these effects. But you can get the same thing from just actually holding the breath down here on sea level. And then you can do that 5 reps once a day. That's one of the protocols that we work through that can take you just a few minutes. And you can do that ongoing. So you never lose the altitude training effect, whereas you would do when you come back from altitude. That makes sense. Yeah. And then the final bit about recovery before we then get into some of the actual practical, managing the airflow. So these 2 elements of recovery during a session whilst we're doing something, and then recovery post-training, trying to create that relaxation state, that parasympathetic shift away from that sort of fight or flight stimulated sympathetic tone that, ultimately training and breath holding, these things are stressors on the body to force an adaptation. When we actually adapt is once we've allowed the body to repair, and helping with that relaxation state is about creating a shift in parasympathetic tone. And some of the things we'll do towards the end, looking out for saliva building up in the mouth as a sign that that's happened. And when we can use our breathing to influence that relaxation response, because our breathing is intimately linked into our autonomic nervous system and our heart rate, and how our heart beats. And there's some nice detail that you can go. That's not for today. We're going to it for another time. But just understanding that when I think about slowing down my breathing, I can slow down the heart rate. When I focus on a particular slower breath rate of like 5.5 to 6 breaths per minute, I'm starting to influence and help balance out that autonomic nervous system. And when I think about extending my exhales, the exhales being related more to the relaxation response and therefore that parasympathetic tone, thinking about extending and focusing on slowing down my exhales is a great way to create that. And we're going to hopefully try to do that actually together. Okay. And then managing airflow. So I've jumped on managing airflow is then about being able to keep myself away from the least efficient type of breathing. So I'll actually come out to start to explain that. Okay, so during exercise, when my breathing is getting a little bit out of control, and we'll experience this after a breath hold. So you don't have to do exercise to make yourself out of control, out of breath. When I do some breath holds, when I let go of that breath hold, if I make it strong and challenging, my breathing is going to be challenged. I'm going to want to suck air in fast. I'm going to want to replenish that oxygen that's been low and get rid of that CO2 that's built up. My ability to manage my breathing is really important for that recovery process in terms of delivery, getting efficient at delivering oxygen. And this is a little bit where the recovery and the performance side, those two pillars in terms of breathing efficiency, start to like intertwine between each other, because I can be more efficient with my breathing as so long as I've worked on practicing the biomechanics and also what we'd call the biochemistry, or dealing with the urge to breathe faster comes down to our carbon dioxide tolerance and how much that's building up. And then how well am I able to manage that airflow coming into the body? So if I'm struggling with my breathing because exercise intensity is high, I'll tend to go to a mouth fast panting breathing, which is least efficient. There's a lot of stuff around like nasal breathing compared to mouth breathing that a lot of you will have heard about before. But one of the things with faster panting breathing that I really is really important for sports performance side of it, before we even get to the point of saying it's not efficient of getting oxygen in, and I'll explain why in a second, it's about body language. When you feel you're breathing like that, you hear yourself and you're like, because you've experienced it before, you're like, I am knackered, I am done. And what's that sort of saying to our mind in terms of our levels of fatigue? And then you got to think about if you're a part of a team, what are your teammates thinking of you when you're breathing like that? Even if they know nothing about breathing, they know that when they see someone panting like this, that they're done, they're spent. Okay, they're fatigued, they're really struggling. And so it's the same for any opponents or opposition. You'll know this from if you've ever been out running with someone, or you're training with someone, or you're in a race or something, and someone comes up behind you and you can hear them panting like, and then you sort of notice your own breathing. You're like, you make a comparison sort of intuitively, like, cranky, they're coming up alongside me, but they're not going to be able to keep that pace up. Like, I'm going to cruise past them later because I feel like I'm completely in control of my breathing. So intuitively, we understand that when our breathing is out of control, that is actually telling us something about our levels of fatigue. But equally, if someone goes up behind you and you can barely hear them breathing, you can just hear their footsteps, and you can hear your own breathing. You're like, you're in the hurt lock, and you're like, I cannot keep this. You just know that person has just got you. And that's just intuitively. We know some of these things. So staying away from that fast panting breathing is about trying to take larger breaths, but slower breaths. So think about the opposite of everything. So if short, shallow, fast breaths are the least efficient, we want to be taking deep rather than shallow. We want to be taking long rather than short, and we want to be taking slow rather than fast. That's because every breath, depending on the size of the person in terms of your lung capacity, but every breath someone takes, we lose about 150 millilitres of air in dead space. That's just air, the space within the airways and lungs that can't be occupied. It doesn't matter what you do, it's wasted. So if I was breathing 20 breaths per minute, so I was breathing relatively hard, then 20 times 150 mil, I'm wasting 3 litres of air in dead space. If I reduce that by half, so breathe 10 breaths per minute rather than 20, I have the opportunity to only lose 1.5 litres of air. So I've chopped it in half. So long as, and the mathematicians will be among us, will go, well, if you just slowed it down, we have to also proportionally increase the size of the breath. So we have to have big breaths, but slower to be more efficient. Then we lose less air in dead space. That means more oxygen getting into the lungs, which is going to help with that breathing efficiency in terms of air in the lungs, gives you a chance to get that air from the lungs into the blood, and then from the blood into the tissues and muscles themselves. Okay, so we're thinking about larger, slower breaths, trying to come from deep down with the diaphragm rather than short, shallow panting breaths. Even both those two I just demonstrated are from the mouth, but that might be the case that the nose just can't handle our breathing intensity, depending on the exercise we're doing. The caveat for that, and also, ideally, we want to try and manage as much through the nose as we can. So if we think that in our warm-ups and low-level stuff, we want to be thinking about nasal breathing in and out. Nice and soft and gentle. As exercise intensity increases, I'm going to have to increase the size of that breath, so it's going to be still nasal if I can, but it's a bit bigger and you'll probably be able to hear it rather than it being quiet. But now I'm starting to, do some exercise. Once the nose becomes too difficult, it's a case of going nose in, mouth out. So you're going to allow a little bit more CO2 to come out, okay, which is going to help you keep that breathing under control. And then the final bit, when the nose in can't handle it, we would be to that mouth in. But I'm trying to manage the airflow by not just having this gaping big mouth open and fast panting breathing. Okay, so that's going to help us to manage our breathing during exercise, and that's something that you'll be able to practice at the end of the breath holds that we're going to do, when you'll be feeling a little bit out of breath. Okay, so you'll be able to notice and feel the difference and benefits of that. Cool. So the practical bits, we're going to do some breath holding, then we'll do some of the relaxation breathing, and we'll tie in some of the stuff that goes along with that. Coaching and teaching people breath holding is one of my favorite things. One of the big reasons the only reason why you stop a breath hold is psychological. The reason a breath hold feels like you're suffocating, or feels like, which it did for when I first tried to do these, I couldn't do 20 steps walking and felt like I was suffocating and just had to give up. And my brain was like, that feeling of suffocation, it must be because oxygen's low. And I really struggled and battled that for quite a while, until did the training with Patrick McKeown. He tells me, get your pulse oximeter on, Jacko, and do your 20 steps, feel like you're suffocating, and then have a look at what that said. And I was at like 98%. So it hadn't changed at all. It's not because oxygen is low that we have the desire to breathe. It's that carbon dioxide levels have built up. So you have chemoreceptors in the brainstem that are monitoring levels of carbon dioxide rising as to tell you when to take your next breath. So when you hold the breath, and particularly after an exhale, you haven't filled the lungs, so oxygen's going to go down quick and CO2 is going to rise quicker, so we get a stronger breath hold. That's why we do it that way around with the oxygen advantage. And that uncomfortable feeling is about carbon dioxide levels rising, and your diaphragm is going to get a message from the brain to say, commence breathing. We need to get rid of this CO2 that's built up. We can use that to our advantage in terms of dumping off CO2 when we get too much of it, but understanding that process, it's not oxygen that's low when you have that urge to breathe. Okay, Try when we tense up because of that, and we're holding the breath, and it's like we'll end up breaking that breath hold. And one of the things we want to do is we want to challenge the system. We want to create a hypoxic, hypercapnic effect, so a low oxygen, high CO2 effect. So we get some of those changes. The low oxygen we've talked about will help stimulate in the immediate. The spleen acts as a blood bank and releases more red blood cells. And that can happen literally immediately after a 30-second strong breath hold. So the research tells us. Okay, I'll talk about the higher levels of CO2 in a second. So let's get practical with it. If you are happy to get your cameras on, I'd like to get your cameras on so I can see you if you're happy to do so. And we'll be doing some breath holds where you could just walk around your room or walk around whatever. It's actually when you're not doing a Zoom session like this, do these outside. I did a video about this there. So do these outside so that you can see a wide panoramic view, a wide lens view of nature. It will help you stay relaxed. When you're relaxed and you relax into a breath hold, you will be able to go for longer. And we're playing around with the visual system when we're talking about looking at nature and wide panoramic views. If you look down at your feet, you're narrowing your field of vision. You're making the system feel more stressed. And the added stress of the breath hold means with that stress, it's just going to be too much and you're going to let go of it. Okay. So just a couple of tiny bits on, this is a challenge for the body. If you're, don't worry if people's internets or they can't put the camera on, but it's just nice for them to be able to see what's going on. If you are pregnant, don't do the strong breath holds. You can do the breathing light stuff we do afterwards. But if you're pregnant, don't do the strong breath holds. If you've got high blood pressure or any serious underlying like health or heart conditions, we shouldn't be doing strong breath holds. But for everyone else, it's just normal, fit, well and healthy, it's absolutely safe and fine to do. So I will give ourselves some instructions. You're going to go start standing. Okay, so if we stand up, and the first thing I want you to do, I'm just going to stay sat down. But the first thing you're going to do is I want you to feel what is it like for your diaphragm to contract strongly. Okay, so the first breath hold you're going to do is not moving, but you're just going to feel the breath. You're going to feel the diaphragm contract strongly. And what we're going to do is this blocked inhalation, where we do a normal breath in through the nose, a normal breath out. So it's not a preparation breath. It's not, right, I'm getting ready for a breath hold. Everyone normally does this, like, Jacko, getting ready for a breath hold. Ready. Okay, I'm ready. They do this big breath in and then do this big breath out. No, we just want it normal. Normal breathing, your foundation resting level of breathing should be silent, should be gentle, and should be quiet. So normal breath in, normal breath out, pinch the nose. And whilst you hold the breath, put your hand between where your two lower ribs meet, below your sternum, and try to breathe in whilst you can't get air in. And you'll feel your diaphragm like splurge down and out. 60% of the time, this one works every time. And yes, those are observant. That is an Anchorman quote. So you should be able to feel your diaphragm. It almost feels like it wants to pop out of your stomach. Can we feel that? Yeah, give me a bit of a thumbs up if you can feel that. Yeah, cool. Now, I want you to just only do a couple. Don't hold it for 2 hours. Just do a couple, and I want you to try to make it like strong. Make it feel like, oh, that was a strong contraction. Well, your diaphragm, when you try to breathe in, your diaphragm's trying to pull down. That's it contracting on an inhale. You're not letting the air in, so it's like going, argh. Now, I want you to feel what that's like, because it feels weird, right? Now, what's weirder, during the breath hold, when we're walking in a second, or you could do some squats, whatever you want to do, but I will recommend starting off walking just because it's much easier. It's not that challenging. It's not as challenging an exercise in terms of the metabolic demand. As we're walking, CO2 is going to build up. Your brain is going to notice that, and it's going to send a message to your diaphragm, and your diaphragm is going to do what you just did, but you're not going to be in control of it. It's going to be involuntary. But those contractions of the diaphragm are good for strengthening it. In terms of sports performance, a stronger diaphragm functions better. If we can strengthen our diaphragm, we're going to have more efficient breathing. It's going to play into that. And breath holding is one of the things that helps do that. There are some other things as well, but the diaphragm, breath holds is one of the things that does that really nicely. Okay, so if that was our first breath hold, we're going to do our second breath hold of the day, and we're going to be moving. If anyone has got a pulse oximeter, whack it on and see what happens. I'll try and do a couple with you, and we'll see where my number goes down to. There we go. Okay, so we're going to be stand up. You're already standing. I'm standing up now. And we're going to go normal breath in, normal breath out, pinch nose, and we're going to just walk. You could walk on the spot or move about a bit for 10 to 15 paces. I want you to count those paces. Okay, so normal breath in, normal breath out, pinch the nose, and then walk. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When you finish, let go, breathe in through the nose. And to start with, it's going to be relatively easy. My pulse oximeter, where the light is just like crazy on the, there we go. I'm at 99% still, but my heart rate's gone right up. Partly because I'm talking very fast and getting quite excited. Okay. So I'm going to time our rest because we want to have a minute or so's rest in between these early ones. And when we do some stronger ones, we'll look at having like 2 minutes rest. Okay. Now, what I want us to think about is when you finish these breath holds, we're going to carry on increasing them. When you're finishing, you're going to let go and breathe in through the nose. That's going to utilize the nitric oxide that's made in the nasal cavity that you're trapping in there. And you should feel a clearing notion of the nose as that nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, helps to open up the airways. As you breathe it in, you take it then down into the lungs through the airways. It helps to distribute blood within the lungs more evenly. When we're talking about breathing efficiency, when we said there was 3 stages, we've got getting it in, 1, so bigger, slower breaths. Then once it's in, we will need to get it from the lungs into the blood. That nitric oxide, by breathing in through the nose, is going to help with that. The other bit would be our diaphragm. When we're breathing from the diaphragm, we're breathing from lower down, and a lot of the blood, just because of gravity, is going to sit lower down in the lungs. So if I'm fast mouth breathing and upper chest breathing, it's efficient in terms of the size of the breath, but I'm not actually filling from the lungs from the bottom. I'm filling from high up. It's also going to create a little tension around the neck and all that sort of stuff that's not good either. Okay, so just think about that whilst we're going through these. You've always got the opportunity to train good breathing habits. And one thing's about when you finish the breath hold, breathe in rather than breathing out when you finish the breath hold, and make it through the nose rather than the mouth. And as we get stronger with these breath holds, it's going to want to be in like that. And I want you to try to manage that. So try to let go. You know it's going to come in fast, or want to come in fast, you're going to let go. And try to breathe a little bit more calmly. Okay? But we're still on easy to start with now. Yeah? But that's going to happen as we go through. So if 10 to 15 felt easy, we've had our rest. Let's go for 15 to 20, or maybe even 25 if you're feeling really juicy. So nice and relaxed. And I like to shake things out. It helps with that. The more relaxed you can stay, the better. Don't hold tension up in here. Let it sink down. Okay, smiling helps us relax. So smile. Normal breath in, normal breath out. Pinch your nose. So again for 15 to 20. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Let go. Breathe in through the nose. Regulate the breathing. Now, these aren't challenging me at all. You can see my heart rate as the top number's gone up. My blood oxygen saturation, it's finally, I come down to 99. Sorry, down to 98 for a split second, then back up. But my heart rate's starting to come back down now, gradually. And what you'll see is, so the heart rate's coming down a little bit more now. It will take longer when we do some stronger ones for the heart rate to come down often than the than our SpO2. Okay, so our oxygen and CO2 will stabilize quicker than our heart rate will come down, But ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the oxygen low and the CO2 high for longer, or as long as possible. So when you let go, if you take big breaths and recover really fast, then you're normalizing those blood gases really quickly. To prolong the effects, we want to let go, breathe in calmly, and breathe in smaller amounts so that oxygen stays down lower for a bit longer and CO2 stays higher. You don't want to recover it quickly in terms of creating the adaptations. Practicing recovering quicker is a different thing. Does that make sense? For the breath holding, I want to prolong the low oxygen and high CO2 effect, so the body has to adapt to it. Okay. Let's go for a little bit longer now. Okay. So we're going to go. If you got to sort of like 25 or so, often around 30 paces, that diaphragm starts to kick in, and you'll feel like it go, whoop, jump out. So just remind yourself, do a blocked inhalation, feel the diaphragm. So normal in, normal out, breathe in, feel that diaphragm contract. Relax, let go. Get rid of any of that tension. And then what I want you to do is, I want you to try and take your breath hold, keep going. Maybe you get to 30, maybe you get to 35, maybe even 40. Keep going until you feel that diaphragm contract on its own. And then try to smile, relax into it. Don't when it contracts, don't tense up against it. Try to stay relaxed, smile, and see whether you can keep walking even though your diaphragm's contracting. That means we're starting to make some changes there. Okay? So, nice and relaxed. It's going to feel a bit weird and you're not going to control it, but it's okay. Remember, it's just CO2 levels rising, not oxygen going down low. Okay? So when you're ready, relax, shake it out, smiling, normal breath in, normal breath out. Off we go. And try and see if I try to go a bit stronger then. We'll cover that breathe in. Try and not take too big a breath in. You go 97, 96. So I need to keep going, trying to get that down to the 95. So we get a delay in the blood oxygen saturation actually reducing down. It's not happening whilst I'm doing the breath hold. It's going to come down after 94, and then eventually it's going to start to normalize, and then it's going to go back up. So hypoxia, where we're trying to get to, is like less than 91. So I still got some breath hold. You know, they weren't that strong from down to 93. They weren't that last one was stronger. Felt the diaphragm contracting, but it wasn't that strong. They go back to 94. It's going to gradually go back up now. Okay. So I want us to try this next one for you to go. I'm going to be able to make sure I see it. I want you to go, as long as you're feeling good and okay with it, that diaphragm's going to contract, but then you're going to go again. And it's going to contract. And then if you stay relaxed, it will go and you'll be able to keep walking through. And what will happen is another contraction will come. Stay relaxed, keep going through. See whether you can keep walking for almost like as many paces as you can. But a couple of tips from me. One, set yourself a target. So if you got to 30 then, go, right, I'm going to get to 40 this time. No matter what, I'm going to get there. Give yourself a target mentally. Remember, the reason you finish a breath hold is mental. It feels uncomfortable because of the CO2, but the reason you choose to finish the breath hold is mental, okay? So mentally, I want you to focus on setting yourself a target and go for it, okay? And then the other thing, smile. Smiling, staying relaxed. Don't look down at your feet. Even if you're in your room, try and like just look up a little bit. And know that it is not oxygen being low. It's just the CO2 rising, and you will be fine. You will be fine. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through it. So get nice and relaxed. I like to just shake things out. If you felt your diaphragm contracting quite a bit, just give that a rub, try and let it out. Maybe do a little bit of a sigh like that. Just try to get rid of any tension before we go again. I can see Renz has got his he's got his pulse oximeter on. So if you do have your pulse oximeter on, put it close to the camera afterwards once the thing's finished to see where we get to. Okay. And if you've got space or you feel comfortable doing it, as well as just walking, if you're feeling good with it, you can turn it into a fast walk or a bit of a jog. See what that feels like. Okay. So when you're ready, nice and relaxed, smile. It's going to be okay. Yeah, shake it. I can see everyone. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Okay, smile, big smiles with mouth closed. When you feel ready, normal breath in, normal breath out, pinch the nose and start walking. Start walking, walking, walking. The first 10 steps or so feel fine now. When you need to swallow, let that happen. That's fine. If the cheeks want to puff out, let the cheeks puff out. Just don't let the air out. Keep going, keep going. The diaphragm will contract. It's okay. It's just a bit of CO2. That's all it is. Keep going, keep going. Really good, really good. Look up, don't look down at your feet. Smile, it's okay. When you have to, you let go and you control the air coming in for the nose. You work on those good habits when your breathing wants to be out of control at the end of the breath hold. Your breathing's being challenged, but you're then going to, good work, Alan. Is that you down at 90? Or is that your heart rate? Definitely both are in the 80s, which is good. If you're yeah, does it make sense? People put their things up. Good, good, good. Gary, I can see you. Renz, good. Make sure you can see yourself as well to check so you know where you're going. Some people still going. Good. And one of the things to think about, try and look at Renz there. If you can get yourself, you can get getting under 90 after you've done a few like that is a good place to be. Say mid 80s, mid to low 80s is like being at, they say it's like being about 4,000 or 5,000 meters of altitude equivalent of. Okay. Give me a little like nod the head along, give me a thumbs. Did you notice after that strong one that my breath, the first few breaths afterwards were like, whoa, like it was challenging. Yeah. That gives you the chance at very low, we were just walking, right? Not hard exercise, easy exercise, but gives you the chance to practice when my breathing is out of control. I'm choosing to do this breath hold. And when I let go, I know it's coming. I know my breathing is going to want to go, but all I need to think about is how do I change that? And practice creating a new habit of how you respond to feeling out of breath. You can then transcend that into any of the training that you're going to do. So you're changing habits, you're changing body language, but also physiologically inside, you're changing your body's how it responds to low oxygen and high CO2. So we get the altitude training effect. One of the things with the CO2 levels rising is we get a load of H+ ions created as part of that. And our body has to deal with that greater level of acidity of the blood and therefore become better at buffering those H+ ions, which helps us with that lactate acid that builds up when we are doing hard exercise. So we can become, I think that the last I've seen, and Patrick's talked about this, being potentially, or they theorize that it's happening in the muscle compartments themselves. It doesn't necessarily matter where it's happening for us. All we know is that we actually get better at buffering lactate. So that sort of like jelly leg feeling that you can have when you're doing intense exercise, you can get better at managing that. Okay. And what I want us to do now is to feel a little bit of difference of that. And we're actually gonna do 2 more reps if everyone's okay, but we're not gonna do it walking. We're gonna do bodyweight squats. Now, a bodyweight squat, don't put any weight on your back, just your body weight, isn't that hard, but it's a lot harder than walking in terms of the muscles that we're using. Okay, using bigger, like your glutes are going to go through a bit more range, your quads, and etc. Try to move with good quality, and as you go through the breath hold, we can start going a little bit faster with the movements. I'm going to do these ones with you. And what I want you to do is count how many reps you do, if you can. Gradually increase the speed of them, okay? It's going to feel pretty nasty in terms of it's going to be intense, okay? Don't hurt yourself, but you're going to feel the CO2 building up a lot faster. And I want to see how you respond afterwards. Remember, you know your breathing is going to be one out of control. I'm going to give you two different things. I want you to, on this first one, is just try to to regulate that really gently. Okay, we're going to do something different on the second one. Okay, so I'm going to do these with you because it's unfair for me to say, right, everyone do bodyweight squats with it, and it's because it's hard, right? Okay, so I'm looking at doing a decent depth on my squat. Want to have good position in terms of the knees, tracking over the toes, etc. But get yourself into a comfortable position. The other thing is it's going to feel weird because we're moving. The diaphragm works as one of the core stabilizing muscles. As we're going through a squat, you know, it's going to feel different for it compared to when you're just walking. Okay, so that's going to just be one of the things. Like, no, it will just feel different. The process is the same. Smile, look up, relax. Remember, remind yourself it's going to be okay. I'll put my pulse oximeter on as well, so we can have a gauge of there and like that. Okay, so I'm going to start gentle, and then as I get comfortable, I'm going to increase the pace of it. Try to keep a count. Be interested to see what we get. Okay, so nice and relaxed, shake it up. Let any tension go. Then when you're ready, normal breath in, normal breath out. Start easy. And speed up. Try to regulate the breathing. I got 30, that was fairly intense for me. My heart rate was like 110 or something. See what we get to. There you go, 91, 88. Down to 79 for me there. I can feel my heartbeat is going fairly hard. Now, if I'm talking, I'm blowing out CO2. If I minimize my breathing, I can try and keep that number that's now 77 as low as possible for as long as possible to extend the period that my body's having to adapt. Does that make sense? Yeah, give me a little bit of a nod along, head along. Did we, good. Oh, Oliveira, Rudy, how are you doing? I've just recognized your face and so just, and your name. Right, how do we find that one? Did we notice that it was more intense? Two things might happen. You might notice it being more intense, or the first time I tried to do it with like squatting or lunging, I was pathetic. I did about 5 reps and I was like, that's too hard. So I didn't even actually go for long enough because the movement was then different and challenged me. And I had to like practice getting then good at that. One of the nice things about doing it, being able to do them, not just walking, is you can start to implement them into your warm-ups, not as an extra activity, but as I'm going to hold my breath whilst I do this exercise that I already do in my warm-up, that I normally probably just go through the motions when I do that warm-up exercise. But when you do it on a breath hold, you like focus like nothing you've ever focused on before. Yeah, does that make sense? It can really help. And if you're a coach or a trainer, if you ever trained somebody, like I've had a particular Paralympic athlete springs to my mind who's like been, you know, a massive star, world champion, all that sort of stuff. But in the warm-ups, we'd chat too much and we'd go through the motions too much. When we started doing breath holds in the warm-up, it was like focus changed completely. Okay, right. Then the last, we're just going to do one more. Okay, And I want you on this next one to show you the difference. When you finish the breath hold, I want you to take as bigger breaths as you can to regulate as quickly as you can, to almost to simulate, right, I'm playing a game or a match and I've got to recover as fast as possible. And remembering that bigger breaths rather than smaller breaths, bigger and slower, are going to help you recover faster. Does that make sense? It's not going to prolong your time for the adaptation. We're doing something different now. We're thinking about how do we recover our breathing as quickly as possible. Yeah.
Using the mouth this time?
Yeah, so use the mouth. You can use the mouth because you're going to get more in. And see, it's not like then do it. It's not spend a minute hyperventilating. What I'm trying to do is, can I get my breathing back to normal if I do 3 really big, effective, slow breaths? And then boom, I'm back to normal breathing. Probably back to nasal breathing, nice and quiet, quickly. Maybe I have to at the start, maybe I have to do 6. But as I get better at recovering my breathing, oh, actually now I only need to do 2 because weeks have gone on that I've practiced. That makes sense? So you will be able to gauge that for yourself. Okay. So last breath hold, last bit of weirdness, and then we're going to do some really nice recovery, relaxed breathing, and get super nice, ready for relaxation. Okay. So shake it out, relax, all that good stuff beforehand. I can't say, I'll be lying if I didn't say, I don't do it just because I think it's funny, but watching everyone shake out, I love it. It's wicked. Okay, so shake it out, relax, smile, have some fun with it. It's the last one you're going to do, so really push it. And remember, you're allowed to give me a couple of, do a couple of big breaths to show me what your big recovery breaths are going to be like. So big from the diaphragm, big and slow. Yeah, just 2. Don't do a load of hyperventilation now, because you're going to make your breath hold even easier because you're blowing off the CO2. But just so you know what it's going to be like. Okay. Then your job is recover your breathing as fast as you can. Okay. Nice. Okay. So when you're ready, smile. Normal breath in, normal breath out. Pinch the nose. And squatting. Start just at an easy pace with your squats. Normally slow is going to be a bit easier to start with. And then gradually, as you start to feel okay, you just start to speed it up a little bit. The diaphragm will contract, that's fine. Swallow, that's fine. When your cheeks want to puff out, that's fine. And then start ramping it up, go, go, go. See what you can hold on to, see what you can hold on to. And then when you have to, let go and give us like how quickly can you recover your breathing with some big breaths. Nice. People really going far with this. Good. Good, Lee. Good, Matthew. Alan's still going. Goran is smashing it. Good work. Good, 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 good. Show us your pulse oximeters if you've got them as well, just out of interest. And just let me know in the chat box, if you were wearing a pulse oximeter, did you notice, like mine, I got a much greater drop in SpO2 with the squats that I did with walking? I'm interested to know where you got to with that. Yeah. There you go. So Alan, you're down in the 70s there, 77. Yeah. 74, 73. Nice. 70. Good. Okay. Yeah. Let us know in the chat box where you got to with those. And also for everyone, let me know in the chat box, did you notice when I let myself do some big mouth breaths, was I able to regulate my breathing quickly? Did I notice that difference? Like, was that helpful for me? And don't confuse the two. The two things are different. Breathing in slowly and calmly, we're changing habits and our response to being out of control. But as well, we were trying to prolong the breath hold effect. That last one was giving you the chance to practice breathing faster when you need to. Daniel says it's more motivated for sure. Olivia, Matthew, quicker. Federico, 100%. Cool. Good, good, good. Regulating breathing was quicker. Giovanni, nice. Thank you, everyone, for feeding that back. Okay, cool. I want you to sit down now and get nice and relaxed. Okay? Priscilla, cool. Get nice and relaxed. We're going to I'm going to set a timer, and all you're going to do is observe your breathing for a minute. I don't want you to do anything other than count how many breaths you take. In and out is one breath. It's not in, out. It's not like in, one, out, two. In and out is one breath. That makes sense? I thought that was obvious. I had someone asking me what one breath was. In and out is one, yeah? I always labour that point now, okay? Oh, Kevin's got a question. Put his hand up. Maybe I missed that. It could have been from ages ago and I've missed it. Apologies if that's the case. Okay, we're happy with that. So in and out is one. And we're going to just, don't change it. Don't speed it up. Don't slow it down. Just smile. Enjoy a little bit of stillness for a minute. So in 3, 2, 1, go. So smile. You can close your eyes if you want, or you can keep them open. But just observe your breathing. Don't change it. Just counting the breaths. Notice also, where are you breathing from? Like, hopefully it's in and out of the nose. But where in your body is moving, in your trunk and your torso? Can you feel your diaphragm moving low down? Or are you a little bit chesty with it? And how do you feel? Like, is your neck tight? Do you feel relaxed? Depending on what's gone on today, it might be the start of the day, it might be the end of your day. Like, you're holding on to a bit of tension. Just note a few of those things. And also just the level of saliva in your mouth. And stop. Okay, so just mentally, a bit of an idea of like, where am I at with that in terms of those things, like how am I feeling, where am I breathing from? But you should have a number, okay? We want that number at rest to be about 10 to 12, okay? If I had 2 athletes, one at rest is breathing at, say, 16 breaths per minute, and one is breathing at 10, it's like, oh, it's only 6 more. That's not that much. It's 60% more. So this person's breathing 60% more at rest. So when these 2 people start exercising, the person that's breathing at 16 breaths per minute is already breathing faster, already breathing more. The other person is more efficient with their breathing. They don't need to breathe as much for that same metabolic demand of being at rest. So when we start training, you're already at a point of, well, the person that's breathing faster at rest is already at the point of breathing more. So they've got less room to go to. Part of our breathing efficiency is trying to bring that down, okay? As we become more efficient with our breathing, our breathing rate reduces down. And then also, one of the things that we'll try to do is we'll practice some now, practicing some time breathing even slower than that. So practicing breathing at 5.5 or 6 breaths per minute, which is a 10-second breath cycle, the 60 seconds in a minute. So if I take 10 seconds for one breath, I'm going to do 6 in a minute. That helps us to calm down and manage balancing the nervous system. We're going to focus for recovery now in creating this relaxation response of having a longer exhalation, the exhalation being related to slowing down of the heart rate and tweaking and activating or trying to create a more parasympathetic tone, rather than the breath holds we did was like stress, was like a stressor. That was creating sympathetic tone. We're going to do the opposite now, bring ourselves down. You might notice a buildup of saliva in the mouth is a good sign of getting into a state of relaxation. Like the opposite of fight or flight being called like rest digest. The digestion part we know is the saliva. Priscilla, you got a question? You want to go before we get into it?
Just to be sure if I well understood, the numbers you're talking about is concerning the seconds of each breath, or how many breath circles we made in 1 minute?
Yeah, how many breaths did you do in 1 minute?
Okay, so I did wrong, sorry.
It's okay. So how many we did in 1 minute, okay? And you see from the numbers people writing down, like there's a bit of there's variance, obviously, yeah. So what we're going to do is compare what you're going to compare yourself with what you did. We're going to spend a few minutes now bringing ourselves down, and we're going to retake it and see where we're at. We'll practice breathing even slower. So if we want it to be around 10, we're going to practice breathing at 6. We know that helps balance the nervous system. Okay. I want you to, you could do this seated, you could do it lying down, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable. But I want you to get into a position with a long neck. So think about, say, if you're lying down, still think about having a long neck. If you're sat upright, think about pushing your head towards the ceiling. Tongue goes to the roof of the mouth, behind the front teeth, as if you're making this noise, where you put your tongue at the starting point of that. So it's there, but it wants to be resting. Tongue posture and tongue strength, your tongue as a muscle, is a wormhole that I've been digging down myself and finding out that did I ever know? I've got a weak tongue and a tight tongue, and I've got some exercises to do for it, but being able to put your tongue at the roof of the mouth helps with keeping the airway clear and stabilizing the neck. So tongue to the roof of the mouth behind those front teeth, and neck nice and long, and just take a few breaths in calmly through the nose. And with that nice long neck and tongue at the roof of the mouth, you might notice that the airflow is a little bit easier through the nose. So all this is going to be in and out of the nose. If you want to have your eyes closed, that's fine. But I encourage you to spend some time during this with your eyes open, as well as having them closed. I want you to be able to breathe well, to breathe lightly, to breathe quietly, whether you've got your eyes open or whether you've got your eyes closed. If you're only able to do this with your eyes closed, then you're just limiting the places and the opportunities you're able to do it. It's good to practice it when you're sat down, as well as lying, or as well as standing. So just start to bring your focus and your attention to the air as it's entering the nose and as it's leaving the nose. Notice the air on the way in slightly cooler, and then it's slightly warmer as the body heats it on the way out. Notice the noise the breath is making on the way in and on the way out. And just tune into that noise and just gradually try and soften it. Try to make it quieter on the way in, and just think about relaxing the body on the way out. The diaphragm's moving down and contracting on the way in, but it can just relax on the way out. Relax your abdominal muscles on the way in so that your ribs can move. And relax and just let it return to normal on the way out. And as you try to make that breath quieter on the way in, you're gradually going to slow it down in order to make it quieter, and then just keep relaxing on the way out. And try and get yourself to the point where if I was sat next to you, we'd both obviously be very excited, but I wouldn't be able to hear you breathing. You're silent on the way in, relaxed and silent on the way out. And can you make it so quiet and so gentle that you can't even hear yourself breathe? So silent on the way in that you can barely even feel any air moving in the nostrils. And then just keep relaxing on the way out. And if you've managed to get it silent, just enjoy that silence. Enjoy the silence, and also notice the stillness. When you're breathing now, your ribs and your diaphragm are barely needing to move at all as you relax. And then keep those silent inhales, and just try to gently extend your exhale. Keeping it relaxed, but just extend it slightly. And then next inhale is still silent. So silent in, slightly extended exhale. You might even have a natural pause at the end of the exhale. That feels good, then let that happen. but don't force it. If you force your exhale and try to extend it too much, or force a pause at the end, your next inhale won't be silent. Sorry. And I want you to keep the inhale silent and the exhale relaxed, but just extended. Our next inhale will come in on a count of 4. So in, 2, 3, 4, and out for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Silent in, 2, 3, 4, out, relax, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that count in your own head. Work with what your body currently is happy doing. Everyone's a little bit different. But focus on being silent on the way in and just thinking about a relaxed, slightly longer exhale on the way out. Don't force it, otherwise you won't be able to manage that silent inhale. And also, if it feels good to, you might notice a little bit of air hunger at the top of the breath and at the bottom of the breath as we slow it down. As long as you're keeping that inhale quiet or silent, a sign that you're managing that little feeling of air hunger. Keeping the breath at a nice pace that's good for you. And if you're not feeling any air hunger, just keep relaxing more on those exhales. And for your silent inhales, for the next few breaths, just try to reduce the size or the amount of air that you're breathing in, just ever so slightly. So you breathe in silently for 4, but just a tiny bit less air. And relaxed on the exhale. A few more nice, just silent in, relaxed on the way out. And just start to notice, how do you feel? Does the body feel relaxed? Is there less tension in the body, in the neck? And notice the level of saliva in the mouth. So check in with that. Often when we've created this relaxation response, as a sign the body's ready to digest food, we'll have more saliva building up in the mouth. Give me a thumbs up if you're noticing a little bit more saliva. That's a good sign that you're in that relaxed state. Cool. Okay. And then just let your breathing go to completely normal. Like, don't try to change it at all now. And we'll just, we'll measure it for, we'll just do 30 seconds this time and multiply it by 2, just to save us a bit of time. Okay. Federica said, almost fell asleep. Yeah, if you're feeling that relaxed, that's good. It's good to practice this before bed, because then you do sleep well. So just going to observe your breathing now. Don't try to count in your head or anything like that, how fast you're breathing. Just observe the breathing in 3, 2, 1. So count how many breaths you take. In and out is 1, just as we were before. Don't try to change it. Just try to observe it. Obviously now you know that you were trying to breathe a little bit slower, but just see how your body responds after that little few minutes of practice. And stop. So take that was just 30 seconds. So take that number, multiply it by 2. A little bit of maths for us, a little bit of homework maths. And then compare it. So for example, Matthew Vines, you did 16 before. What did you do this time? And you take that number and times it by 4, down to 12. Great. So you've gone from 16 down to 12. Really good. Really, really good. Nice, nice, nice. So Gary, you was 11 earlier, now you're down to 4. Fantastic. Same for Jacko, 14 down to 4. Good. So what we're seeing is, you're noticing that when I practice breathing slower, when I then stop doing it, I've created a pattern and habit and tone for the body that it will happily stay doing that slower cycle in a short period of time afterwards. Now, if you waited 2 hours and then redid it, it's likely to start to go back to wherever you were at before. But if we start to think about improving our breathing throughout the day at any time we want to. This is like sort of day-to-day stuff, like, can I just practice slowing down the breathing a bit? Every time I'm going to do some exercise, a lot of you will train, you know, every day for a lot of people sometimes. Are we spending some time down regulating after a training session, practicing breathing slow, getting the body in a state of relaxation? That's when it will start repairing. So if we do that for 5-10 minutes after a training session, and we're doing it for 5 or 10 minutes before we go to bed, to create that state of relaxation for a more restorative night's sleep, but better repair whilst we are sleeping, then we're going to improve our recovery rates. And as part of that, we're also going to be improving how well we breathe, how we manage airflow, our carbon dioxide tolerance. If people feel, give me a thumbs up. Could you feel that? Give me a thumbs up if you felt some air hunger. It was like, it was okay how I was breathing, but I could notice that I wanted to breathe a little bit more. I noticed I was breathing less. So you're starting to change the brain's relationship, or the chemosensitivity, as we call it, to carbon dioxide. Yeah. So that's some key things that you can do around. You know, we've had an experience of what was it like in terms of performance, what was it like in terms of recovery. Nice to do the recovery breathing before bed as well, to help with that relaxation response. Even a couple of breaths before you eat food to create more saliva in the mouth is a good thing to do, you know, to get the body ready for digesting. And we talked all the way through that, how that can sort of affect our breathing and our breathing efficiency. And I've gone a little bit over for you, apologies, but you were doing so well on the breath holds. We had some good fun then. If for those that are, some of you are already engaged in it, but for those that haven't looked at the sports performance program, there's two options. There's an ebook or there's an online course. The ebook is obviously an ebook, and there's I think it's 20 tutorials in there, as well as 6,000 words of written material to explain this in more detail. You've got that there to keep for you. You can watch obviously all those videos through. There's a program at the end in terms of talking about what might we do to try to fit this into our day-to-day and training lives. And I gave two options because I wanted to be able to share this with people, and wanted to have like a low price, cost efficient way for people if they want to get a little bit better with their breathing for sport. So it's 29 quid, but for everyone that's at this workshop, there's a code workshop 10, gets you 10 quid off the ebook. So it's only 19 quid with that code workshop 10. There's a full money back guarantee on it. I believe in this, I've used it with many professional athletes out there. If this doesn't help your breathing and help your performance, then email me and I'll give you your money back, no problem at all. If you think this is not working or it's not helping for you, I just want people to be able to use it and try it out. The online course takes, you get the ebook as part of the online course, so that's within it, but the online course has got like modules broken down. You work through the different sections, and you've got lifetime access to all of the material in there. But the difference with the course is I run monthly live Zoom sessions like this, where we get to actually practice the stuff together. I'll explain stuff in more detail, and you get to ask questions live and join those sessions. It's 99 quid for the course, but that gives you access to the online sessions forever. So you can join as many monthly live sessions if you sign up to the course for 99 quid. So it's more expensive, but you've got ongoing. You could 10 years time, if we're still doing them, you could join the live sessions if you want to. Hopefully in 10 years time you'll have got the grasp of it, and you won't need me anymore. Ultimately you get to the point where you don't need me. But yeah, there's some options for people if they want to take it a little bit further, or take a little bit of a deep dive into it. And hopefully, I hope that the ebook with the at 19 quid with that discount makes it affordable for everyone that wants to, regardless of your sort of what currency you're on and that sort of thing. So that's all I had planned for the session. And thank you all for joining. Really appreciate your time and your beautiful faces for those that was able to put their camera on, and for people with their pulse oximeters giving it the full beans. And I was impressed with a lot of you. You got to remember when I first tried to do a breath hold, right? And I'm not making this up. My bulk score was less than 10 seconds. We didn't even talk about bulk score today, but my bulk score was less than 10 seconds. A lot of you will know what that means in terms of oximeters. But walking steps outside my house here, I couldn't do 20 steps walking. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Now, I've since understood a bit around the head injuries that I had from playing rugby, etc. But yeah, a lot of you were like smashing squats out then. And yeah, I'm impressed. You guys are doing well. Yeah. If you have, all of you you'll have probably got my email as part of just signing up to this. I can't remember if Eventbrite does that, but I'll send you out an email so that you've got my personal email. And if you've got any questions, you can just ask on there. It's David Jackson Fitness, or I've got two, David Jackson Fitness at gmail.com, or my Oxygen Advantage one is david.jackson at oxygenadvantage.com. It's pretty simple, what you'd expect. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Jeremy, loving your background. I wish I was actually there.